All right, let's see if we can get some responses. There's a couple of themes running through. Limpopo, for instance. What did you find? What were your thoughts on Limpopo?
With regard to Limpopo, we have had sessions with the leadership in Limpopo, right up to the level of the Premier. And our discussion was more about identifying what it is that gives rise to the lack of progress in some of the departments. What we have identified particularly is the fact that the level of skills at CFO level is lacking, and that is one of the priorities that if they that can be given a top attention will give rise to a turnaround there. We are still going to have another session where we'll explore that situation even further.
But what was your overall finding of Limpopo? I mean, as I mentioned a bit earlier on, you said Western Cape, Gauteng, KwaZulu-Natal improved their audit outcomes. But what about Limpopo generally?
Generally, there are departments that have got clean audits in Limpopo. I think it's about 4 of them. The departments as well, 2 departments as well as the 2 public entities. There are also departments that have got disclaimers and qualified reports. The level of those departments is quite high. I think it's more than a third of that have either qualified audits or disclaimers.
And by the way, disclaimers are the worst opinion the AG can give.
Yes, that is correct. That is correct.
And you say that 2/3 of the departments in Limpopo may be falling under that category.
No, it's not 2/3. What I'm saying is that more than a third of the departments in Limpopo, that's the cutoff that we used, have got departments that either have got qualified reports or a disclaimer. In fact, incidentally, there's only one disclaimer in Limpopo. It's I think it's education. The others have got qualified reports, but there are those that have got clean reports, which do need to be commended.
Was the intervention warranted?
I cannot speak about the intervention by the cabinet or the Ministry of Finance because that has got a different reasoning, which the Minister of Finance did describe. What I am talking about is the situation where to clean up the audit outcomes, you do need to get CFOs, you do need to get regular accountancy, you do need to get regular monitoring by the leadership. And those are all the issues that in the session with the Premier and the Speaker and members of the legislature and the MSCs we had reached an understanding on. And we're still going to have a follow-up session to explore that matter even further. But
Mr. AG, was the situation in Limpopo any different from the many other provinces in this country?
It actually wasn't different. It was similar to others, but it was different to other provinces that have shown.
So it was different to the Western Cape, Gauteng, and KwaZulu-Natal only, but similar to the 6 others.
It is similar in terms of the. If I use once again my cutoff point of a third of departments that have got either qualification of disclaimers, we have got 4 provinces that are in that category, being the Free State, being Northern Cape, being Northwest, and Limpopo. The other 5 at least have got less than a third. In fact, some of them are in the teens, with the exception of the Eastern Cape with 27%. They are in the teens when it comes to departments with the qualified reports. Yeah.
Part of what these reports are supposed to do is to create that sense of confidence in issues of governance. But again, some of the posts that I've read here, people are just saying these are just protocols, no action is taken. Are you worried?
I do not believe that these are just protocols or formalities and no action is taken. The action that is being taken to a large extent on our side, which is a question that we have had to field for the past 3 or 4 years. What is it that we are doing as an audit office? We're creating a lot of space to educate the leadership about the importance of this discipline. It's something that has never been understood to be significant and important. And for me, it's quite pleasing that as we speak today, we have reached that milestone. In fact, this year we've got to a point where the leadership itself has understood, has consented to the fact that their role to set the right tone at the top is the right tone, so that these issues that the commentators are making reference to of consequences not happening can start happening. We needed to make that investment because otherwise consequences would have taken in a vacuum. But now I am pleased that the leadership has got the right process, the right ability to track matters, to track activities, to track performance, and to get people to sign performance agreements that are a lot more meaningful, rather than rubber stamping those performance agreements.
I think the broader worry, though, Mr. AG, comes out of an assessment that says of the provinces, of the national departments, we've got those that progressed, congratulations to them, but we've also got many that are stagnating and even others that are regressing. Now, where we have that, then people will start worrying.
And those worries are legitimate. And the only one common factor in all those situations that we have cited is the role that the political and the top leadership have taken. In many of those that have progressed, the leadership has heeded the call to take the responsibility to heart and do the right thing. And we've seen the results. And those that have not performed that well, the leadership had not taken that to heart meaningfully and seriously. And that is why I'm saying today that we have had to make a lot of effort and place a lot of emphasis on that, because without that happening, we were going to be faced with a situation where we're going to every year keep talking about the same thing. But for me, yes, the results may still show little progress, but what I see is more giant progress being visible at the level of the assumption of the ownership by the leadership.
But part of what leadership has to do in order to assume that ownership is to understand financial statements themselves. At different tiers of government, do you get the sense that leadership even understands the processes of financial reporting?
That is happening. Maybe 2 years ago, I wouldn't be saying so. Last year, that was beginning to happen. This time around, there is a greater understanding of those reports and why they're important, why they're meaningful, why they've got to be accurate and validated. Previously, the information was just submitted without confirming that the information makes sense. When we come as auditors, we then pick up that there are fundamental flaws in most of the information that government has made massive decisions on. What I can say now is that there is an appreciation that the information provision mid-year has got to be correlated with the information validation continuously. And in fact, the office's conversation with the leadership, which is why this report is tabled now, presented now, has given us a clear sense that that is happening. And to a large extent, once again, it does respond to the concerns that your commentators have made reference to, which I concur with, but we need to find the root of the problem. If we don't find the root of the problem and deal with it, we will never get to the bottom of this issue. And I'm happy that if the leadership lives up this time around to their promises, we're going to see a breakthrough. All right.
Let's open the lines here on 0891 104 208, 0891 104 208. Send us an SMS as well at 34701, 34701. Remember, we're talking to the Auditor General, Mr. Nombembe. We are talking about a report. It was published yesterday, the 2010-2011 General Report on National Audit Outcomes. There may be specific questions that you would like to ask. Please do so on 0891 104 208. You talk about getting to the root of some of the problems. Just give us an idea of some of the violations that you identified. What are people doing that you think is a violation of financial reporting that should be happening?
Yeah. Most of them are consistent with what we've picked up in the past. They relate to very few areas. Sometimes you wonder why these things, simple as they are not being fixed. One is to get accurate financial information. And to get that, you need to verify information continuously. Hence, we make a very vocal plea and request to the CFOs to take that task seriously and do it diligently. Second one is the accuracy of service delivery information. To a large extent, yes, services do get delivered. Yes, they get reported. But when we get to many departments and seek evidence of what is said to have been done, we tend to struggle to get that. That, I understand, is a process issue, and a case of understanding what the auditors will want, a case of understanding what the Treasury guideline is. In that respect, there's been a task force that has been established with the Treasury, with Presidency, I think with DPSA as well, Department of Public Service Administration, to deal with the clarification of how service delivery information ought to be dealt with and reported on and managed. And the third and the last issue is the general compliance with the rules of the country, and specifically the rules of reporting that Parliament has established in terms of the PFMA. In that respect, there's a lot of deviation from these rules, and the biggest area of deviation is supply chain management. This is an area that we have also been quite vocal about, to say more validation of the decisions that are made needs to be given attention, so that by the time decisions are made to award contracts, we need to confirm right at the level of the MSCs, the leadership in general, that due process has been followed, because this is what gives rise to these large numbers of irregular expenditure.
The deviations in the
deviations from
supply chain
management and not following due process, which in our earlier discussion you said is tantamount to corruption.
And you agree that it is tantamount to corruption?
It is, because it's deviating from what should be done, and it's giving people unfair advantage. And because you don't know why people are being given unfair advantage, is it deliberate or is it not deliberate?
But again, I think some of the people that have sent us their comments this morning are saying, let's see action being taken against those that deviate from the established rules and regulations. Yes,
that ought to be done, and that's the reason why irregular expenditure has been identified, for that to be regularized. One way of regularizing it is investigating and taking corrective action, and then condone that needs to be condoned. And also get to a point where you recoup the losses where monies have been lost irregularly. And in our monitoring, we will be tracking to what extent those irregular expenditure have been regularized. And one of the issues we have emphasized with the legislatures is the need to make that one of their biggest tasks, because this number of irregular expenditure is growing into multiple billions. And for it to come down, it means a lot of work has got to be done to investigate the underlying reasons for those.
All right. I'm going to go to the lines in a minute. Already inundated. Prophet OJ in Mahikeng, Frank Talk in Mangaung, Gift in Port Elizabeth, Mvusiwe Kaya. I'll be with you in a second. I just want to ask you, though, Mr. AG, you spoke about compliance and people not complying. And apparently one of the issues that you raised or flagged yesterday is the concern about President Jacob Zuma's office not complying with the laws and regulations. How so?
This is a matter that is consistent with what other departments are doing. It just so happened that it is also the presidency, then they are also affected by that. Solution to that is to say, within the presidency, the accounting officer and the minister in charge of overseeing that administration has got to monitor those matters regularly and make sure that they do not happen. So we treat them at the same level as any other department. Yes, they've got to lead by example.
Exactly, because you're talking about political will here and political leadership. That is where we may find change that we're looking for. So it means that the president must stand up against this.
Indeed, not only the presidency, but the premier's offices, the treasuries, local government departments. Those are some of the departments that are generally coordinating ministries that have got to demonstrate that they themselves are doing what they expect others to do.
But when you say they're not complying with the laws, what exactly do you mean? What did they not do?
Well, in many instances, I wouldn't want to go to the specifics of what they did not do, but just to say the controls around following due process when they transact is what was deviated from. But the biggest number there is not necessarily irregular expenditure, which was smaller. It was mainly unauthorized expenditure, which is more about overspending on their budget. That was the main issue. Irregular expenditure was far less than that number. Yeah.